Hello, my dear viewers. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of the personality. Today, I would like to talk to you about the individual approach. Each of us likes it when we are given personal gifts for our birthday or another holiday, the ones we need, the ones we like, and we are especially pleased when a person remembers what our preferences are and what we told them in conversation. And at this moment, we feel our existence particularly acutely. That is our presence. I am. I am seen. I am known. I am respected. It is me they are paying attention to. And of course, we don't like the opposite attitude towards us. When a person gives something that it's clear from previous conversations we don't need at all or don't like, or when they write something banal to us, I always say, this is how you can tell if a greeting is written personally or just formally. If this greeting can be addressed to anyone, that is, you can just take it and forward it. You know, like the pictures that are forwarded on holidays, then this message is formal. The person's individuality is not taken into account. And the fact that in wishes people usually wish for what they want for themselves is a separate topic for discussion. But today we will focus specifically on the individual approach, first of all to ourselves. So at this particular moment, we truly feel the maximum I am when a person speaks to us personally, takes us into account, remembers us, remembers what we told them. And there is a moment in life when our individuality is completely erased. I think that not many of you like to stand in queues, because in queues you are just one of a crowd of people in a completely depersonalized state. That is, you got in line after this person, which means this person is in front of you, they are first, and someone is behind you. Maybe you even subconsciously like it when someone is standing behind you and you've already reached, say, the bank teller. The same kind of depersonalization happens at government offices, especially when submitting documents. A person's individuality isn't considered. They just ask you, okay, according to the list, I need this document, this one, and this one. Or when you're crossing a border at customs in airports, you become just one of many. And that unpleasant feeling, I think you can recall it right now, is precisely about the erasure of individuality. But when we're treated as someone unique and one of a kind, we like that most of all. And this is the main request children have for their parents. And parents have the same request for their children, to be treated as unique and one of a kind. And many children feel robbed precisely because their parents didn't treat them that way. But if a parent can't treat themselves as an individual, if that individuality hasn't crystallized for them, then they can't see anyone else. They don't see themselves and they don't see anyone else as an individual. So it turns out that when there's no clearly expressed individuality captured in the present moment, because we are also different, at some point in life we want our loved ones to at the very least be quiet. Or on the contrary, we sometimes want them to talk with us, to have a conversation. Sometimes we want them not to touch us, and at other times we want them to hug us. We want more attention, we want less attention. So you see, when we talk about individuality, we're not talking about something frozen in amber. It's always in the here and now, in the here and now. And many people who try to form some kind of self-image to answer the question, who am I? They try to grasp it, but it's too changeable to, just sit down and write it out. But still, today we're going to try to describe ourselves. So when we go to an appointment, for example, with a doctor, let's take a psychologist. A psychologist is also a kind of doctor at times. We want the psychologist to treat us as an individual, as someone unique and one of a kind. And I've observed in a group setting when someone has a certain idea, a script for how a session should be run, and that person, acting as the analyst, starts to follow it. The client gets tears in their eyes, realizing they aren't being seen or heard, They're just being asked formal questions from a script. And undoubtedly, especially for psychologists, it's important to see individuality. That is to see who exactly is sitting in front of you now. And here we too fall into another trap. If I, for example, am a psychologist, I want to understand who is in front of me, then most often this understanding becomes typing. That is, I do not try to understand a person in the current moment, understanding that he can change in the next moment, that what is being shown to me now, it is not the whole personality. And if I am too concerned about how I look, how I speak, what people think of me, then for the sake of supposed knowledge, I will use typing. Borderline, narcissist, schizoid, and so on and so forth. Or there is resistance there. Rejection trauma. That is, this supposed knowledge, this typing, it also erases individuality. It's hard enough to think, and it is difficult to think of another person as an individual if you are not in the habit of thinking of yourself as an individual. And this special structure of one's own, this truly unique and individual pattern of personality, is actually quite difficult to fully grasp and understand, because a person, more often than not, most often wants to conform to some kind of social or cultural norm or standard. Many clients, in fact, frequently ask me, with genuine curiosity, what would a so-called normal person do in this situation? Or do you write in your questions on the YouTube channel, but what is the correct way? That is, this is how it is right, how it is normal. You immediately renounce your individuality. That's right, it's normal. You can write as many instructions and rules as you want, but will this particular person be able to use them? That is, in fact, a psychologist should have a personal approach to each person, just like every doctor, and I believe that this applies to a person of any specialty. And usually those who are able to discern this individuality achieve something in life. Who can pick it up? Special key in the moment. What other important moments in life do we experience and truly feel at that very moment? The loss of our individuality. Most often we feel a loss of individuality when we do something wrong or make mistakes. This is the error. It begins, a deeply dormant unconscious fear is activated within us. That is, if I am wrong, if I did something wrong, I made a mistake, then it means I will not survive, I am incompetent, wrong. And that's why we react so violently even to minor mistakes, because it's the fear of death, the fear of not surviving. And that's why we react this way when someone else tells us we're wrong. It's as if they're annihilating us, shutting us down, stripping us of our individuality. In that moment, we plunge into non-existence, we cease to exist. And if we know that in moments of mistakes, miscalculations, or failures, this mechanism of non-existence is triggered, and along with it, usually, aggression and self-punishment for the mistake, then we understand where this inner darkness comes from. In other words, we sink ourselves deeper and deeper into non-existence. The next point is devaluation, when we start comparing someone to ourselves or ourselves to someone else. It doesn't matter. But this act of comparison and devaluation is also an erasure of individuality. Another point is the fear of being stupid. Yes, I am stupid. That is, when a person is stupid, they are also inadequate. They don't know, they don't understand. And again, this fear is triggered. I won't survive if I don't know, if I don't understand. And the fourth point is I am crazy. This is when a person is overly emotional, affective, meaning they are either in a state of affect or hysterics, and then it's as if they can't trust themselves either. So these 4 points are quite subtle, and most often we don't recognize them because they are in our blind spot. It is because of them that we cannot crystallize our individuality and develop a personal approach to ourselves. That is, for all people who lie to themselves, about their individuality, who lie when answering the question, who am I? These points are constantly being blurred. This, I made a mistake, I am wrong, becomes, no, the other person was wrong, it was the circumstances. So it's as if the person deflects the blow and is always looking for someone to blame because they cannot bear it as a simple fact and instead begin to fall into non-existence. In the same way, this devaluation becomes a way to escape non-existence. You see, when a person is not in the space of their own individuality, they are always sort of blurry, like a shadow, as if they don't quite exist, as if a part of them is missing, and they constantly fall into a space of invisibility and then return from it. This habit of devaluing both oneself and others, it's as if it activates the personality, but only for a moment, meaning there's no rootedness. The same goes for the fear of being stupid, this I know attitude. I'm sure you've seen it many times. When someone doesn't know something, they get very assertive. I'm not stupid, I know. What are you trying to teach me? What are you talking about? That condescending tone. And in this fear of being stupid, the person actually becomes stupid because they're not thinking in the moment. Instead, they communicate using these dogmas, diagnoses, this typing, instructions, some theories they've learned. And the fear of being crazy. The person constantly explains to themselves why they had an outburst. It's as if it didn't happen, but they accidentally had an outburst. Accidentally got angry. They were provoked. In other words, they don't take responsibility. But right now, let's try to take responsibility. So let me talk about myself. Let me say right now, honestly and truly, that I am a flawed, not very capable, not very smart and emotional being. Again, I am a flawed, not very capable, stupid and emotional human being or a person. When we hear from someone that you are flawed, you are not very capable, you are stupid, and you are destroying your life with your emotions, it feels like an insult to us. Meaning it feels like we've been attacked, that something nasty was said about us, because we cannot admit this about ourselves. Well, of course, it would be more pleasant for me if people told me that I am very capable, that I am smart, and that my emotions are in order. But in reality, a person truly can't do much. You have to agree. Our capabilities are limited, but we don't want to think about that because the limitation of our capabilities immediately reveals our individuality, what I am actually capable of. And this rightness, wrongness thing, we don't want to remember our mistakes or find some cumbersome explanations for them. And because of this, a person makes the same mistakes. They can't remember it because they berate themselves. And they can't understand that this is a weak spot for me. If I meet strangers, I start trying to please them. I betray myself. Or I need to write things down because I forget. Or I need to keep track of where I need to go and set reminders because I forget. You see, it's all about acknowledging the nuances, the weaknesses. Yes, the same goes for the silly things too. For a person to become smarter, they need to stretch themselves and learn to think independently. You can endlessly consume literature, videos, but if there's no reflection, no writing things down, then you don't get any smarter. And when a person understands that they are foolish, they become careful with their words. They then provide more justification for their point of view. They don't communicate in slogans, they speak carefully. Yes, and it's the same with emotions. When I understand that I am emotional, and every person is emotional, at least they were in infancy, then one doesn't perceive their emotions as something thrown at them and doesn't start looking for an external cause. We are emotional from the start. That's our past. We came from that excessive emotionality when we would scream if something wasn't the way we wanted. We would summon others by screaming. We would compel others by screaming. And all this understanding, it forms a real individuality, meaning I understand who I really am. And then I can find an individual approach to myself, understanding the subtleties of my personality. And by understanding the subtleties of another person, not trying to force them into a mold, telling them what they're doing right or wrong, then I get the opportunity to understand, to truly understand the other person. And the fact that you spend less nervous energy and effort and then a person can choose exactly what suits them and the people who fulfill and develop them. You see, this is subtle, and here you need to use a scale. You know, people usually think with scales that measure, say, 100 kilograms. 100 kilograms there, how much? 100 or 200. But here you need a scale with a tiny little weight. When you are sensitive, when you are attentive, when you are not in a hurry, you listen to yourself. And then you can create a map of your personality. This is who I am. Try to write some truth about yourself based on these 4 points, and looking at it, say, this is who I am. Not this is who I am, and not this is who I am, but this is who I am. This declarative, calm attitude allows us to form our individuality, to treat ourselves with attention, and to become more successful. And in the same way, to treat others, taking their individuality into account. I'll ask you, the brave ones, the bravest ones, to write something about yourselves in the comments, something that is acceptable to share publicly. This is who I am, and I can look at it calmly. Not boasting about it, not regretting it, but simply stating it as a fact. And that's that. Now, what haven't I mentioned? I haven't mentioned this yet. I'm genuinely glad to read your comments. And this brings us to the final point. Next time, we will move on to something new, something slightly different. So if you feel drawn to explore your inner world through reflection, observation, and everyday moments, you're very welcome to stay with the channel. And I truly appreciate everyone who supports this space with your presence and your attention. May these themes help you look a little deeper into yourself at your own pace and in your own way. And with that, I'll say goodbye. Until next time.